بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to all of the listeners, whether you have joined here on Instagram Live or you have joined online later, or you're listening on Spotify or YouTube. You are very welcome to the Monthly Reflections podcast. I'm now inviting my dear brother, our first guest for today. So we'll give him a few minutes to join, inshallah. But those of you who are here, assalamu alaikum to you. Inshallah, you guys are keeping well. Sadiq, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, Sayyidina al-Aziz. How's it going?
What are you drinking? What's that?
It's I'm the boring guy. Water. I'm just a simple guy with a lemon, actually. To that.
No, the lemon is what got me. I thought it's a little bit fancy for
and the mint.
Yeah, I've just got a bit of chai and I feel a bit under. And I want to go for a lemon in it or something.
If you've got elchi, then you're good, right? Or elaichi.
I saw Imran's thing and he's like, "What chai should I use?" And I'm thinking, "Gosh, is this a part of Instagram Live where we are like choosing the beverage?"
100%. You know, I think where it started was Ali Fawel. I remember 2-3 years when COVID was at its peak, right?
Yeah.
He had this show on Imran Hussein TV. I remember I went on and he was like, "So, bro, what cup of tea have you got?" And I was like, "What? What is this?" But it's a thing, it's this like post-iftar brew. It's a proper thing.
They call it chai and chat, innit? So chai is an essential component to this thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It feels like wajibat. But anyway, I'm a tea guy. I don't know how people can have tea this late at night, man. I don't get it.
I had a mojito a few days ago. I was living the dream.
And you're telling me my plain water, lemon and mint, is not on your level? Come on.
Today, your lemon has outdone me. If I know mojito, I'll be rinsing you. Don't worry.
You know what? My wife actually sometimes adds chia seeds. That's when it gets serious. Yeah. And I don't know what they do, but apparently they're good to like quench thirst. But
no, that's when you're on you're on a Ahl Bayt TV fundraiser or something. That's that's when.
Oh dear. Good to see you, my bro.
Bro, what's happening? Are you keeping well? How's your family?
Alhamdulillah, all good, man. It's fun doing Shahr Ramadan with the kids. I tell you that much. It's a different experience altogether, but it's special, man.
That's mad. Where are you? You're in London. You're here, yeah?
Yeah. I'm still here, West London.
So did they wake up with you for Shahr and like, what are you guys waking up for this early? Like, how does it work?
Alhamdulillah, he's sleeping now. We were a bit worried he wasn't going to be able to sleep the whole time, but Alhamdulillah, he's sleeping. So we like creep down as quietly as we can, because if he gets up at suhoor, iftar is tough enough, but suhoor is it would be a completely different game.
Mad. How old is he now?
1.5.
MashaAllah. Sadiq,
yeah,
big boy moves out here, bro.
I feel old, honestly, bro. Honestly, I think I'm ready to go. I'm getting really old.
Well, you've done the majority of your khidmah. You've got married and had a child, so the rest of it is a bonus from here,
You'd hope, right? Half the deen done. So if I mess it up from here, I've done something really wrong, which would be surprising. But
no,
we're waiting for you, Said now, bro. We're waiting for you so we can create a little gang together, right? In fact, you have an obligation on your shoulders, no, to continue a lineage.
Yeah, it's true. It's become Shar'an, yeah. But I gotta get married first. There's a sequence to these things, so inshallah.
That is true.
Ramadan, what are you up to? Are you doing sessions online? Where are you going? Are you visiting different centers? What are you up to?
Inshallah, we'll be visiting a few different centers in the coming days. So that's the plan, inshallah.
When you're in South London, you let me know, okay?
I'm waiting for you to say for Mendy to come, bro, and then I'll be there. Ish.
Inshallah.
No, I'm there a decent amount. My in-laws are there, right? So I'm there a decent amount in Stratton. So, but the new center's not even there now, which is sad in some ways.
The new Haydri Jama is in Addington. It's about 10 minutes away from there. It's not too bad. Mm-hmm. Everyone listening is welcome to the new Haydri Center, by the way.
You went, right? Or you were about to go?
I've been there. I spoke there. It was good. It's a nice. It's like a different vibe, because obviously you grew up in the old Haydri, but it's good. It is nice. Yeah.
You're claiming that Haydri was your center. You're not. That isn't your home center. Let's expose you a little bit here, right?
There is a battle between Idara Ja'fariya and Haydari Jamaat in South London,
Yeah.
and I let them fight it out, and a few others. But yeah, those are home grounds for me.
And there's Zaki Rizvi as well, one of the other local boys, right? Because
He's my
he's
boy.
actually here he's here this evening in West London. I was hoping to see him, but it didn't
Yeah,
work out.
he told me. Yeah, he's doing a session. It's Husseini mission, right?
Exactly. That's the local one here, yeah. Great
The
guys. Really,
the
really working hard.
listeners, I'll say that the listeners, you guys don't know this. Well, I'll mention, maybe you do. Sadiq does these Thursday sessions at Husseini Mission, and even Sadiq doesn't know this. I've been trying to gate crash one of them for so long, but I've been telling him Zaki's driving. I say, listen, Sadiq's doing a session. Let me just show up. It'll be great. I love showing up at these things, but there's always something on that Thursday. So my advice to you is, one time when you're going, just expect me in the room in the corner somewhere, and I'll be there.
You know what it is? Because it's Thursday night, it's dark now, right? So maybe with that line of dark now, Allahumma wa man aradani bisu'in fa'arid. Maybe like I'm keeping the evil away. So you've never made it.
Sadiq, listen to me. If I am thrown into the hellfire, I will call out. I
Ya
wish I could
Allah.
have gone to at least one of
Ya
Sadiq's
Allah.
Thursday night sessions in Husseini Mission.
Ya Allah. Ya Allah. All you need to do is just read Ayatul Nasr's Principles of Faith for the youth book, which I'm sure you have, or at least experienced a bit of it.
Yeah,
They're amazing, man. Like just going through the simplicity yet subtle intricacies of the way that he portrays things is really so powerful. And I think, at least our generation, I can only speak on behalf of our generation, even at that, it's a bit of a generalization, but we think we're clever, we think we have critical thinking, and we think our faith doesn't have it. And when we
yeah,
see our scholars like dumbing down this such a complex faith for us into basic arguments, and it satisfies and satiates our thirst for this complex argument, we're like, it makes all the difference. So then you learn more, and then at some point you're like, oh, actually, this faith is quite smart, and I'm really dumb. So he's
You
a
know,
great entry point for it, right?
let's broaden this out a little bit. So in this society that we live in, we are often, as people of religion or deen, we're often told that, there is an incompatibility between your faith and reason or rationality or modernity, and different words are used to basically describe how we're not intellectual in our approach. And then what I think happens is, a lot of people, when we hear this, naturally we are a little bit insecure. Like, hang on a second. Whenever I've gone to the majalis, whenever I've gone to these places, I've not actually got an intellectual approach. So it requires taking the initiative to open up a book and actually see all the things
100%.
that we're reading. But interestingly, your approach is to bridge that gap even smaller by bringing the books to the people. We're not even asking to pick up a book. Like, I'm bringing you the book. I'm bringing you the content. You consume it. Let me ask you this: when you're selecting different books to discuss with different crowds and audiences, what motivates you to choose this book over that book, this idea over that idea? What impacts on that decision making for you?
It's a really interesting one, and I think I was sat with say Mehdi Mudarrisi a few weeks ago because we were meaning to catch up, and he was in London a few weeks, but a couple of months back now actually, and I was explaining the similar thing because he asked me as well, what kind of books are you picking up and why? And I said, look, say I'm really sure you probably get very similar messages or questions from people saying, can you give me advice on this, or can you give me advice on that, or can you? And there's always a common theme I found, right? People are constantly asking about the common things, be that from they've got their aqaid secured perhaps, and now they're thinking, okay, I want to learn more about our way to savior, or I want to learn more about death, or I don't quite feel it, something in my salah. It's usually those kind of common themes on the secondary things, if you like, right? But sometimes you get these kind of weird, convoluted questions that are, you always kind of, when you look beneath them, you kind of realize they're more of an aqaidi issue, like that the person maybe hasn't engaged with their aqaid as much. For example, we talk a lot about why, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so loving and merciful, but why does evil exist? You're like, okay, we need to go back to adala a little bit, and you tease them a little bit with adala, and you're like, oh, actually there's a gap in your tawheed, okay, we need to go back to there. So after kind of I started to see this common pattern, I was like, hold on a second, it's the same stuff. So one thing that we're working on in the background, inshallah, in the coming months, we'll see something come to fruition, inshallah. If you want to create a almost like wajib reading list for every single English speaking Shia. And this is like a book of 10 books that look almost like before you die, you as a Shia must read these 10 books, because the hypothesis is to clarify your worldview if you nail a qaid, if you know, nail it, you'll never nail it, but you know, if you get to a decent degree of understanding, and
Yeah.
if you understand Mahdi, you know, Mahdawi concepts, if you understand Ma'ad, if you understand so Salah, whatever, you're going to be good. 90% of the way, you're probably going to be good, right? So it's really just been like taking some of those common themes, being like, you know what, let's bring this. Ziyarat Ashura being another massive one that, you know, people
Sure.
constantly talk about, but treat it like a magic trick. If I do it 40 days, then I'm going to get whatever I said on the tin, right? That's how it works. So this has kind of just been the general pattern. And the more books that come out, like we had one just recently, translated obviously from Shaykh Mutahhari's works called Fitra and Man's Innate Disposition.
Mm.
And you're just like, well, maybe we need to make space on the list for that because that's going to be a solid one. So we're just trying to like figure out, you know, which ones make it on the list.
It's interesting on that last point. There's a speaker who's going to be coming on in the future in the series, and we're discussing what we should talk about. And I mentioned fitra, like it's such a cool, you know, interesting concept, the innate nature of insan. Because look, we're in Shahr Ramadan, and we're meant to be fasting from different pleasures to reconnect to ourself. And why not? We say, well, what is
Mm-hmm.
that self we're returning to? What is our innate inclinations, and you know, how do we deal in between your shahawat and your nafs and these things? He's like, look, even I don't get this topic, so I don't want to talk about it. So these things go quite deep. But what I like though is that everyone's on their own journey. I mean, everyone who's listening, by the way, Assalamu alaikum to all of you, inshallah. You know, we are all on our own journey this month of Ramadan, and we are trying to get something from this month. And we're all on different journeys as well in our ilm. Someone might have certain fundamentals, someone might not, but you know, we're here to equalize ourselves and getting towards Allah Azza wa Jal. Gaining ilm often comes up as something someone wants from Ramadan. Like you ask someone, what do you want from Ramadan? I want to gain knowledge about this, about the Quran, about Allah, about Ahl Bayt, something. I want to gain knowledge. And what we often find is people, you know, they try really hard, but they haven't got the system of gaining ilm in the right way. And often you feel like they are hurting themselves in the way they're trying to gain knowledge. And this brought us up to our topic today, where, you know, sometimes the way we do things makes life harder for ourselves. You know, we are shackling ourselves in many ways. We are making life difficult for ourselves. And I mentioned this theme because if we're interested in the idea of, for example, how do we break from our prisons, we have to acknowledge that sometimes we create our prisons for ourselves. We make life hard for ourselves, you know. In the month of Ramadan, do you see examples of this where, you know what, the way we do things makes life way harder than it needs to be, and Islam came to make it easier? Like, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Massively. And you know, it's so, but sometimes like when you learn more, right, you realize sometimes just how simple things are, but equally when you learn more, you realize just how complex things are. And it's a weird paradox sometimes, right? And I always bring it back to, and it's a classic example that I think, if I'm not mistaken, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, Ayatollah Bahjat, may Allah bless his soul, I think talking about Allama Qadhi, for example, saying, and again, if I get this wrong, please correct me, along the lines that if someone wants to reach a level of, you know, going on a journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if they pray their daily prayers on time and they don't feel that kind of extra level of that connection and journey, whatever, they can do la'an on me. It was in one of the tafsir of Ziyarat Ashura that I was reading, and you're like, that's so simple. That's so simple. And people go into Ayatul Bashar, like, tell me these like secret things, like just pray on time. Like seriously, just pray. Stop bothering me. Just pray on time, please. You know. So sometimes just draw it back to the most basic things, and you look back at your day, and you're like, you know what, I wasn't doing the basics right. Yeah, I'm hoping for this revolutionary, prophetic, exponential, miraculous journey towards the heavens and back on one of these nights of Shahr Ramadan, but I still was whinging when I was trying to get up for Fajr. You know, the most guilty party right here, right? It's hilarious how much we think that all of this spiritual energy comes from elsewhere, but in reality, we're just sucking it up and doing nothing with it because our ego is getting in the way, or our desire, or our shahwa, or our ghadab, or whatever it is, all gets in the way. And Shahr Ramadan is a really, I'm going to use a weird word, horrible time in some ways, because it exposes it hard. Like it really, really exposes it on us. You have all of this energy almost drained from you in the day that otherwise would have fueled these lowly desires that you have. Yet despite fasting for 15, 16, 17, and back in the day, 19, 20 hours even, right? despite all of that, despite being zapped of energy, somehow your body still fuels this lowly desire that you have. You're like, seriously? Like, am I really using my last ounce of energy on that rather than something godly?
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'm just trapping my own self. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's not the TV. Maybe it's not the people around me. Maybe it's not my family. Maybe it's not my partner. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the guy. I'm the issue. And I think Shah exposes it quite in quite an aggressive way, actually, which is sad, but also such a beauty of this month, right?
There's a thing, all this year we do things which are mistakes, we commit sins, and we're like, you know what, that was waswas, that was Iblis whispering to me, that was my desires getting a hold of that external thing. Okay, here comes Shahr Ramadan, we're told Shaitan is imprisoned in this month. So technically what that implies is whatever sins I do this month, those weren't things that were whispered to me externally. That Shaitan figure I made to kind of segment all of my sins towards, that's not him anymore. Oh, so that thing was in me. That problem was in me. That fault was in me. And actually, what better reality check do you have where you realize, you know what? I actually understand what is not me, because I'm actually doing much better in this month than before, because let's say Shaitan is locked away, whatever. But you know what? This lying or this desire or that particular jealousy, that thing has not reduced 1 ounce when the moon was sighted in Ramadan. So clearly that thing was in me. So ironically, in the month where we're saying Shaitan is the one who's in prison, I realized I was the one who was in prison all along.
That's it. And this is that line of that dua that, we were going to base our chat on, which I find so interesting. If you just, and I always say this about so much about our ad'iyah and our ziyarat, but I really believe any in Quran, like you can take one of these lines and that could do you for the whole of your life, right? You could get it inscribed on your walls or whatever, right? You can pick one line of many of these supplications and that's it. If you live by it, you're good.
Pick one, bro. Let's go. Let's hear it.
Bro, there's too many. And you know what? There's so many. And I'm going to give a shout out to the legend that is Sheikh Mohammed Khalfan. For those of you who don't know him, he's one of our, I'd say, homegrown scholars. Yeah, he's one of our elders, but he's from the community. Still in Qom at the moment. And one of those
still publishing.
Still publishing, still producing. And he's one of those how do I say this in a careful way? We're at a time where I think the value of scholarship is really being underestimated, and the value of taqwa is being underestimated. And he's one of these scholars who, despite the level that he's reached, despite all the accolades that he could have collected, and I'm sure has in some ways, but could have collected even more and flaunted it a bit and whatever, he hasn't. To be really honest, like from what I've seen, he's not done that. He's taken a very sincere route, which really is quite inspiring. And the content of his work, and 3 books that I'm going to advise all the brothers and sisters to have a look at. One is the one that I'm going to mention from just now, Manifestations of the All-Merciful, which is a tafsir of the dua, Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-qubur as-surur. Phenomenal, amazing, just brilliant, to be honest, just really brilliant. A second one is, I've got it behind me, I forgot, they're Seeking Elevation, which is a tafsir on the dua, Ya Ali Ya Azim. And the third one, last but not least, and genuinely one that I think changed me personally quite a drastic amount, is his tafsir on Ziyarat Ashura, The Sacred Effusion. 2 volumes. There should be a third coming soon, inshallah, if Allah grants him more tawfiq and rizq. But that, we've been through that book with a few different groups now, 2 volumes, and people have just attached to it like magnets, right? And alhamdulillah, this is Sheikh Khalfan, and I'm sure by his own admission will say he's just taking works of other scholars and compiling or whatever, but the way he's produced it and published it is outstanding, right? So any benefit we get from what we're about to learn from this line of Sister that we're about to mention, goes to him, and we pray for him, and any mistakes are on my shoulders. But it's this line in that dua, Allahumma fukka kulla asir. So, oh Allah, release all the captives or release all the prisoners or whatever, which initially when I read that line, as a kid, firstly, listening to this dua for Allahumma adkhil, and everyone's going, Ilahi Ameen, Ilahi Ameen, Ilahi Ameen, right? Or at least when I was young, I didn't know what they were actually saying. It just sounded like a grunt, to be very honest, right? But they're saying something, and this whole dua, you're just thinking it's just pointing outwards, right? You're thinking, it's the Shahr Ramadan, you're fasting because, you need to feel the hunger of everyone else, the very initial understanding you have of things. they're like, oh yeah, of course, we now pray for those who are inhabitants of the grave. We're now praying for those who are strangers that aren't returning home. We're now praying for those who are in debt or in poverty, and so on and so forth. And you're kind of like, yeah, this isn't a dua, alhamdulillah, in some ways for us, right? Because we're not worried per se, that, you know, the two of us at least, and maybe some of the viewers as well, aren't necessarily worried about food being on our table and so on and so forth. So we're like, yeah, we're good. It's not about us. But Shaykh al-Fan flips every single line in that dua onto the person reciting it. He's like, I'm not saying that, you know, you shouldn't pray for these other individuals in the world. No, for sure. Like, this dua is so beautiful. It teaches you, you know, a jar thumma dar, right? Your neighbors and then your household. But each of these lines is actually about you. Spiritually, it's about you. It's a visualization about what you're going through spiritually. And I think this line encapsulates it so beautifully, right? So, Allahumma fukka kulla asir. And I don't know how responsive the viewers will be, probably not that much, but I kind of want to ask them, like, where does their imagery take them with this spiritually? And I think you mentioned it, right? It's being shackled. Someone who is asir, it's like they've got fetters between their ankles, like a handcuffs, ankle cuffs. Could you call it ankle cuffs? I guess you could, right?
Shackles
Foot cuffs?
is good for both, isn't it? Shackles.
Yeah, shackles, right? So you've got shackles between your ankles, and like you're struggling to take even the smallest of steps to reach a certain area. But the way he describes this is beautiful, right? He goes, look, you've got an individual who's got shackles between his ankles. The shackles prevent that individual from having freedom. They can't do as they wish to do. What's the impact of not having freedom? Well, if you don't have freedom, you can't achieve a goal. So your goal could be as simple as, I want to go and have a burger from Amigos because I just fasted, right? And I deserve a 6-ounce Tex-Mex. You can tell I'm a little bit hungry, right? So that would be the freedom, and the goal would be to do that. But because I've got these shackles between my ankles, I can't do it. So what's the spiritual goal? The spiritual goal, of course, qurbatun ila Allah, qurba ilahi, however you want to say it, to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in the way that the shackles around my ankles are preventing me from having that freedom, what is preventing me spiritually from having that freedom to go and reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That we've been invited to this banquet. Again, another beautiful imagery that Shaykh Panahian talks about a lot based on the sermon of our Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You're meant to attend this banquet. You're meant to like run to it. You're meant to be buzzing for it. You're meant to move around the buffet. You're meant to go speak to all the brothers and sisters, you know, so on and so forth. But you're shackled. Something is causing your ankles to just not move, your spirit to not move towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we've got to figure out what it is. And actually we realize the prisoner is ourself. And then you can use this analogy, and I'm sure we could go crazy for this on hours on end to explore where this analogy takes us.
Let's summarize it once. So we in the month of Ramadan, with our many goals and ambitions, think we are going to, you know, achieve so many things. And we realize that Allahumma fukka kulli asir, that may Allah help every captive, is actually a reflection on ourselves, because we are captive by certain things, by our love for this dunya, by certain desires we have not dealt with, by certain attachments we have not yet severed. So we realize, like you mentioned, we flip it back to us, and it's like, I was the one who was captive all along. So logically, the next thing would be for someone to say, well, in that case, what am I captive by, to know why am I asir? Like, why? And also, a person can be asir of something good and bad. Asir is a neutral fi'l, like it's a verb which can be used for something good and bad. And there are examples for this in our narrations, actually, of how someone can be asir for the love of God, and someone can be asir for their shahwat. Like, these things are not the same. So what are my poisons? What are the things that affect me personally? Now, bear in mind that not everyone has the same attachment to different desires. For one person, saying no to alcohol is so easy. For another person, it's the hardest thing they do all day. So we have different things. What is affecting me? And then number two would be, well, how do I free those shackles? If we follow the metaphor of Sheikh Khalfan in his explanation, you would, at some point, you would break open those shackles. Like, that's the point. So how do I break open the shackles in the month of Ramadan from the things I've shackled myself with? If you look at this line, what do we have in that line to answer maybe some of these questions?
I'm gonna just pick up on a point that you mentioned, which was you can be shackled positively. And just before I forget it, he actually mentions, Sheikh Al-Fam mentions this beautiful hadith. Like, I loved it, especially to show the opposite side of it. It's beautiful hadith, where, the Holy Prophet is reported to be speaking about the merits of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And as we know, the remembrance of Amir al-Mu'mineen is ibadah. So here we go. He's reported to say, indeed, whomsoever loves Ali is called the captive of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth, and
Asir
Allah
Allah
is
fil
proud
ard.
of him. Ahsant.
Uh,
ألا ومن أحب عليا سمي أسير الله في الأرض
wow.
وبهى الله به ملائكته وحملة عرشه. And Allah is proud of him near his angels and the bearers of his throne. So you can have that asir, exactly said, you can be captured in that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Amir al-Mu'mineen. Like, it's just sick. I just love that. Like, you can live by that and you're good as well, right? In the objective sense.
That
But
reminds
if we
me
bring it,
of Mitham al-Tammar, who would rather face any difficulty or trial, including imprisonment at some point, including watering the tree on which he's going to be hung, than let there be 1 second in which his tongue is no longer doing dhikr of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Like, for us, people think that these things are hardships for us, but when you are intoxicated in the Habballah, like, those prisons don't matter. It's Yusuf saying, imprison me if it's the alternative to sin. And it's the same for a Shia. Like, honestly, and think of yourself seriously, when you feel that love for Imam Ali alayhi salam, you would let go of everything in the world until you let go of this thing. You'd let go of your right to walk around outside, then let go of this thing. So that's a good example for every lover of Imam Ali alayhi salam who's trying to connect this month.
beautiful. Have to, right? So let's go back a little bit though. So as you mentioned, that what kind of things can we be shackled by, or what could be shackling us, right? And I think on the surface, and I'm not going to oversimplify them because they are very intense, but you've got the diseases of the soul that I guess everyone usually talks about. So hasad is one of those, right? And hasad is so toxic, but I think also misunderstood in many circles just to be, oh, they've got that car, I want that car. Like, it goes much, much, much deeper than that.
Yeah.
And I think, ironically, we were speaking about this earlier, ironically, we're both sat here on Instagram, but it's a very tough place to be in, really, not to feel any hasad, especially, for example, in a month like Shahr Ramadan. Even if you're the most sincere of the most sincere, this place can trip you up so easily because everyone's portraying a fake version of themselves to some degree, right? So hasad could be an example that, the itch to backbite, to gossip. And nowadays it's just frightening how easily we find ourselves in it. And this line of kind of speaking out against what is right and what is wrong versus slandering someone is a really tough line again. We can, again, maybe it roots from hasad that causes us to backbite. In a way, they kind of link to each other. So there's a lot of these things, and it's probably for another session to go into like these cancers of the soul, if you like. But I think deep down there's something very interesting that a personal reflection on this kind of stuff, which is when you are enacting upon, for example, the itch to backbite, right, or the itch to have that thought or feeling or action related to jealousy, you really are making a decision in that moment. You're really, and in every single point in our life, we're really making a decision. Either we're joining the Hizb of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or we're joining the Hizb of Shaitan. And in every single decision that we make, we're in one of two camps. And that's the war that's waging within us, right? And I believe there's a hadith attributed to Amir al-Mu'mineen where he discusses this concept. And the heart goes between one and the other, one and the other, one and the other. And you can feel it, right? We all feel it, and that you almost feel that flare come up in your body. And 10 years ago, it would have been one thing that today doesn't really mean much to you. But today it's something new that inshallah in 10 years time won't mean much to you, and so on and so on. But that spark will happen, and it's almost like the game begins, right? It's like catalyst, boom, you're in, and you've got this 5-10 second moment to make this decision. And it's like almost like which side you're going to end up on, right? You're going to Allah, you're going to Shaitan, you're going to Allah, Shaitan. And at some point, the needle stops. And if you've prioritized that, if you prioritize anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you've moved away from Tawheed in that moment. And some of our Urafat, in fact, say you're now journeying towards polytheism, billah, right? Because you've prioritized something greater than, you've obeyed something other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think when we start to see it a little bit more deeply than that, we're like, whoa, you know what? Each time I do that, I'm just locking the lock in that prison even more. I'm just like, you like turn the key and there's another latch. It's like, it just keeps on going. And in order to get out, I'm going to have to undo each of those locks that I've just been doing. And that's when we start to realize just how much we've put ourselves in prison because the soul started so pure. I've seen it with our own kid, alhamdulillah, experiencing and seeing how pure the soul of a baby is and how much you as a parent go to protect it more than your own. You're like, that's got potential, that's got purity. I want to make it the best, right? But for our own soul, we're just not as nervy. You know, we're not as worried about it. And we end up finding ourselves in the depths of a very tough prison that, you know, we have a journey to try and get out of.
Yeah, or we didn't value ourselves as worth freeing. I mean, we value the children and their innocence because we see something in them, but maybe we've forgotten our own innocence that was always in us. And as such, because we observe in our negative qualities and our faults and our ayib and these things, like I don't see myself as worth saving anymore. And we have this narration from the Prophet that the one who regards themselves as honorable will see sins as dishonorable for them. So in fact, this idea that I have not taken myself and seen the value in who I actually am is both the problem and the thing we're complaining about. But let me make it a bit clearer. You know, listening to you, it makes me think that every decision that we make, it will have one of these two impacts, right? Either towards Allah or away from Allah. To even a nominal degree, it can even something which is mubah, doing it is at least taking you towards God because you are not doing something which is wrong. And I think in Muharram, everyone equates themselves and feels empathy with Hur because of that line that I have placed myself. I placed myself between heaven and hell, and I have to choose now. Like, which one do I go towards? And Shahr Ramadan is almost like that, where it's like I have placed myself at this holy month, and the banquet of God is in front of me, and the prison guard, let's call it Iblis, has been shackled away for a moment in a second, and I'm here and I can do so much. But if I just choose not to, I am the subject of my choices, and I can very easily make
100%.
myself stagnant or stop. And I think the listener will think that, you know what, like I want to see every moment as a potential to go towards God. But sometimes we don't see it. Sometimes we think that Allah is not present in this moment. And actually, Sheikh Jawad mentioned this in the first night of this podcast, where he was like, why do we not see Allah everywhere? Like, when did we stop seeing God all around us, in our decisions, in our emotions, in where we get our rizq from? We mentioned a few examples. Why do you think that we have this prisoner's mentality where it's like, I can't do anything, I can't break out of this thing? Where did this idea come from that I can't even do it even if I tried?
It's a very defeatist mentality, right?
Yeah.
It's and I very interesting. I see it in the workplace now more than ever before, and I'm really seeing I've been in the same company for just over 6 years, 6.5 years, right? So I've seen cohorts, if you like, 3 cohorts of 2 years come in and go. And I'm just going to sound like as if I'm some like old school veteran kind of guy, but genuinely I can see it from the cohort I was in. There was a lot more resilience. And even at that, I'm sure the generation before us would have said we weren't resilient at all, versus the later generation where you have to be so much more careful with feedback, so much more careful, right? And I think that there seems to be this, if there's a struggle, there's less of an appetite to struggle. And I compare us against our parents, and their willingness to struggle was 100 times fold what we're of, right?
Yeah, of course.
Haider, we stand, we're trying to find new centres, and the young guys, we're struggling to put a fiver out, and our parents were remortgaging their houses for it, right? So it's not for me to talk, but it's just to illustrate that there is something there. And I think I remember sitting with Sheikh Jawad for some chai one actually before Muharram, when we were speaking about like a few things, and we were discussing this topic about how can you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like through the day to day. And I was saying, look, in the workplace, we need to share with the community that going to work is not separate to finding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Absolutely.
Going to work is another opportunity to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within yourself, within where you're making decisions, how you're treating those around you, so on and so forth, right? It's crazy how many times you're finding those decisions to and against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I just want to maybe touch on that illustration, I guess, a little bit more on the prison cell. Are you big into like films and TV dramas and stuff?
I'm going to say, are you big in prison? I was like, bro, I don't think my podcast goes to HMP.
Majesty.
But
So,
yeah. Ironically, I do work in prisons. But yeah, I'm big on films. What have you got?
okay, so I'm terrible on film and TV, right? But for some reason, I've watched these 3 things. So Prison Break, the series.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Shawshank Redemption. That's almost wajib for any film lover. Okay, and
Of
Green
course.
Mile.
Yeah, of course. Don't worry, we're in the
Okay.
clear. Yeah.
We're in. Okay, so Green Mile is more just illustration of prison, right? But I guess Shawshank and Prison Break is more the concept of getting out, right?
Hmm.
And I love giving this analogy just to kind of play on it a little bit. So you're in prison, sad times. At least now we acknowledge maybe Shahr Ramadan has come, as you said, Iblis is gone, and I'm still making the same nonsensical decisions as I was before. So I've admitted now, it's come some kind of spiritual prison, and I want to get out, right? But I need a yearning firstly to get out. So I'm like, okay, simply put, if we look at Prison Break, there's kind of like three main steps that happen in order to get out. The first step is this: I need to go and figure out who the prison guards are. I need to kind of get some of these guys on side. I need to maybe get some inmates on side as well. I need to get familiar with the ones who have got me locked up, so I know I can speak my way through and get out. I need to be familiar with it. So similarly with myself, I need to be familiar with what's keeping me in here. As we've just mentioned before, what are the things that I need to either befriend them and get rid of them or solve them, right?
Okay.
Secondly, I need a plan. I had a real good plan to get out. And we've got the best example in Michael Scofield, who goes to the extent of getting the plan on his body, right? Unfortunately, his ghusl is probably like invalid for a long time now, and his wudu is invalid for a long time. That's for you like your legal theories. I leave that to you.
We're not giving
Open
any
up a can
rulings
of
on
worms.
tattoos here, by the way. We're not giving any fatwa on the permissibility of tattoos. Refer to your marja about these issues. Don't come to me or to Sadiq about this. Carry on.
Legal theory expert. So he comes in and he's got it's in the theme tune, isn't it? When his brother's like, Michael, what are you doing? He goes, I'm gonna get you out. How? Even better. I've got them on me. It's like that.
You've definitely researched this. You were watching Prison
You
Break
know,
going, I'm
no.
gonna pick on that intro.
I kid you not. I kid you not. Right. When I was thinking about this lecture like a few months ago, it just all came back to me. And the worst bit was, I was like, why do I remember this so well? And I think it was when Prison Break like first came out, or a few years after, I watched all of it in Shahr Ramadan. So that just shows you how unproductive my Shahr Ramadan back then was, right? Like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever, it wasn't the best use of my time. So anyway, he's so committed, he gets the plan on him,
Right.
right? And I think genuinely we need to be thinking about, okay, from those 4 or 5 spiritual vices that maybe I have, let me just take one of them and figure out practically what I'm going to do to get rid of this one. But the third part of this this formula, I guess, is amazingly illustrated in Shawshank. When the guy gets out or he's on his way out and he's in the breakout and he's got to crawl through piles and piles and piles of fun stuff.
Mm.
And you're like, you know what? Even when you got the plan, you've got to work hard to get out. You've really got to burn off all of that nonsense. It's the classic example that they give in Madrasa, right? When you've got a whiteboard and then you rub it out, then you draw on it again, you wipe it, you draw on it again, wipe it. You do that 1,000 times. There's going to be a bit of a stain at some point. And he's got to go through that awful sewer and crawl and crawl and crawl to get out. And that's what we've got to do. Because once we come up with the plan, we've got to go through some pain. And I think if we start it from now, then we can get to Qadr and feel with every single astaghfirullah that the burning almost like of the layers around that soul, so that we come back to that pure baby-like, ma'soom state perhaps, and we can leave this month thinking, you know what, Allah's got me. Like I always used to think when I went on Hajj and they said, if you leave Arafah thinking that Allah hasn't forgiven you, you flopped it. And I was like, this concept, I remember I was just panicking towards the end of Arafah, it's such a relief almost. That is this love and mercy of this great Lord that we have. So once we crawl through all that sewer and realize what we've gone through and all those layers are burned, inshallah we emerge pure, but we need the plan and we need to recognize what the vices are in front of us. And that's the spiritual prison break in my head.
I like this idea because we're not glamorizing the idea of escaping from the shackles we put on ourselves. It's not the case that, okay, now that you've found out that I did this to myself, yalla, you put your hands up, you say a certain magic formula and it disappears. No.
And you're done.
Yeah, like there's pain in literally taking these things off, And it reminds me of a hadith from Hassan alayhi salam where he's describing the purpose of istighfar. He says, one reason why we do istighfar, he says, is because you need to cut off the flesh that you allowed to become part of yourself in the sin. Like you have to actually sever it from yourself, مُخَالِصٌ لِلَّحْمِ, like it has mixed with your flesh. So to all of the listeners, like in Shahr Ramadan, once you find out what prison you're in, that's not the end. You know, that's, let's say, season one of this prison break that you're going through.
We can make it. We can make it.
And I think that the next stage that comes after is more painful. But as anyone who's accomplished anything in life, you always look back at that pain and you say alhamdulillah for it. Like when you're looking in the mirror and you've worked out, you say alhamdulillah for the pain you went through in the gym. When you've got your grade in exam, you say alhamdulillah for all the hard work you put in because it came out somewhere. When you, I don't know, you pass a long journey, you finally get there, you say alhamdulillah for the steps when it wasn't easy. When my friends were doing an assault course recently, like towards the end, that feeling of like itmi'anan, that, you know, I accomplished something. Well, they weren't saying that when they were crawling through, you know, hoops of downwards facing, gravity defying, you know, 180-degree drops. They weren't saying it when they were covered in it. They weren't saying it when it was raining. But when they got there, they were saying it. So in many ways, we are struggling now for what we are hoping to achieve come Eid time, not just Eid, in the future, like when we look back. And actually, you know, when we see it when the month of Ramadan ends and, let's say, Iblis returns or is, you know, is released, and then we then realize how much we've accomplished when we're not going to the mosque every day and we're not reading Quran every day in the way that we were in Shahr Ramadan, and that vibe is gone. But what remains? How much did I actually internalize? You know, it's a journey.
It's scary. Those Eid days kind of almost like the transition, and the day after Eid, you're like, okay, I'm back in it, and you really see it. And I think there's a really interesting point here from this account, Light Upon Light. They said, how do you maintain that fortitude to get through season 2? So how are we saying? We're saying season 1 was like finding your way out, and was season 2 the breakout, like the resilience to keep going?
Let's say season 3's breakout. Season 2 is the plan, like you mentioned. It's deciding how am I going to make the most of the nights of Qadr to break out from this thing. Because those, really and truly, though, that's the qalb, that's the heart of Shahr Ramadan. It's the nights of Qadr, the nights of power. So now until then is us planning of what we want to achieve on those days and getting ready. And then afterwards, when I guess, so the question is, in other words, how do I plan for the nights of Qadr to break out from the shackles that I've put on myself? If I can take some artistic license in interpreting your question, dear brother or sister. It's a good question. How do you maintain that motivation? What do you think, Sadiq?
If I knew, I'd be on a different spiritual level. You know, I genuinely, I think it would be unfair to say that I would know how to do it, because I think all of us still have another layer to burn, right? But I'll share this hadith, which I think is maybe quite apt, just to maybe illustrate how, and maybe this is a concept of khawf and raja a little bit. And I'm thinking of this top of my head, so this could be absolutely wrong, and then please guide me and correct me, Said, on this, right? But I'm thinking that you always want this balance of recognizing who you're up against, in a way, who you're prioritizing against, but also being encouraged that by recognizing his greatness, you'll be filled with his mercy as well at the same time, right? So to realize who you're up against, maybe there's this hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen where he's supposed to say, "Kam min aqlin asiran 'inda hawa amri," or Amir, sorry. How great a number are the intellects under the captivity of dominant inclinations. How great a number are there intellects under the captivity of dominant inclinations? How many of us, how many brains that Allah has created, or minds and wise intellects exist that are actually just deprioritizing itself for the sake of lowly desires? And I think when you dig deeper into that and you realize, what is it that I'm prioritizing against? What is the balance? What is the trade-off? And I think when you recognize what that trade-off actually is, and what you need to know what the choice is between, right? Because it's so easy to just go, yeah, don't look at her for a second time. Or, you know, don't listen to that. Or don't eat that, or whatever. It's easy to say it, but realistically, you need to know what's the alternative. Because in the short term, to be honest, I could really enjoy this second look. In the short term, I could really enjoy this bit of backbiting. So what's on the other side? Because I know what this is going to feel like, but I don't know what that feels like. And I think you need to, at some point, recognize what you're missing out on and what there is to gain. And of course, that is that proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in order to know that, you need to know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to the best of your ability. You need to increase your ma'rifah. Because the more you increase your ma'rifah of this, the more insignificant you see this other thing. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Dua Arafah, that line that I personally am just addicted to, right? And I always get it the wrong way around, but what has he who has found you lost? What has he who has lost you found, right? No matter what you find in Allah, it's just going to dwarf anything that you've missed out on. And I think that helps you go, you know what, I'm going to create a plan. I want that. I really, really want that. And I see perfection in that and I want to get there. And that also helps you through the tough trawl through the sewer that, what's his face? What's his name in Shawshank? What's the guy's name? The guy
Andy Dufresne.
Andy Dufresne. Look at that. Look at that. That's the brain of the lawyer. Yes.
Yeah. No, I like this. I like this point. Because we're being honest by saying, and actually you mentioned something in passing earlier that I'll mention, I'll make clear. Like, you are going to see the positives of the things that you're choosing against. Like, there are certain desires that are strong, like looking twice and these things. Like, that comes from a real place of natural desires that we have. But the question is, can you evaluate the value of each one and choose what is more honorable for you? You know, imams, when they say that we see sins the way that you see excrement lying on the road, like, we see the reality of them, so we can choose not to do, because would you go through that thing or not? Like, you can choose. Yusuf is a great example, and I think in that book they discussed the Prophet Yusuf in that section of where he's tempted by Zulaykha. Right. He's tempted, and there's that verse, right? That
قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني عليه.
Exactly. I would prefer the sijn over what they are welcoming towards, inviting me towards. And so he can see both. He can see the value of what the Zulaykha and the other women who are lusting for him, he can see and feel the desire in him for it. That's definitely true. And he can see, on the other hand, the alternative, which is rejecting them. And in that moment, it's only because he sees both that he can choose one over the other. And obviously he chooses, he actually says, Ma'ad Allah, like, I won't choose anything except Allah. I don't see anything except Allah in that situation. But he does observe the situation he's in. And I think that's realistic for all of us, where when we face desires, someone like Yusuf was able to acknowledge the desire in him and then choose not to follow on it. And there's nothing wrong with saying that I have desire for that thing that I shouldn't have, only so that I can say, here's why I'm not going to do it. And actually, we have to sometimes be our own motivation, that voice in ourselves to tell ourselves when no one is there, you're not doing this. You are not going to go back to this action. You are going to be better this time. But we have to acknowledge that. It begins with saying, look, I know why you want to do that thing. I see it. I know that you have a positive feeling. I know you feel safe there. I know that it fills a hole in you. I know all of those things. Our ulama say we should speak to our nafs like you speak to a young child. Like, we can't be too harsh with ourselves, We have to be loving and say, look, I know why, but if you do touch that fire, you are going to get burnt. And wallahi al-azim, I don't want you to feel that pain. And if I can show that much love for your child and other children, why can't I show that love for the inner child in me, who is feeling imprisoned by the actions which I did when I attained, the experience of life later on. All of us listening now are in that position to undo anything that we did to ourselves. There's that narration. When you do a sin, it doesn't become you. It becomes maybe linked to you or mixed with you, but it's not you. It can be cut off. And I think Shahr Ramadan reminds us of this. Every prisoner can become freed. Allahumma fukka kulli asir. And every single one of us has the potential to be freed in that way. Is that why did you choose this line of all the lines of dua to discuss? I've mentioned why I like it. What was it about this particular line of all of them in that book and in that dua that resonated with you?
Not gonna lie, bro, I could have gone for the whole thing, yeah. This dua I love. Since that book, I just love it. I love it. And I know you pinned Sheikh Jawad to say you can't get away and you have to do one part of Nahj Balagha, so I know you'll do the same here. Honestly, like I find this one, I love visual things. Yeah, I've got a very simple brain. I'm not a smart guy. I just like visualizing very simple concepts. And I think imagery, when it comes to spirituality, given that spirituality is a domain that perhaps we can't visualize as clearly through our five senses, right? So I, for a basic guy, need something to help me understand it. And I love imagery. So this one, I don't know, like, I think when it started to connect with the concept of breaking out of prison and what keeps you in there and why are you there, I'm like, wow, I never would have thought of myself to be in prison. Never, ever, 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 right? And then you start hearing this whole thing of, would you rather be spiritually free and physically imprisoned, or physically free and spiritually imprisoned? And all of it culminates to that line. And you mentioned him already, but we're going to mention a second famous line that's associated with him, with Hur. And, a guy who turns it round, right? It's just the most legit story ever. The guy turns it round. He does a U-turn. No matter how hard you think that U-turn is, we may be going at 20 miles per hour and it's a bit easier, right? Quick handbrake turn, we're good. Hor was doing 100, 120. He was on like the Autobahn in Germany. He was going for it in one direction and somehow managed to do the U-turn. And that's what gives him this edge where Abu Abdullah is reported to say to him, أنت حر كما سمكت أمك حر في الدنيا وسعيدا في الآخرة, if I've got that correctly, right? That you're free just like your mother's named you. And I love, again, I'm personally linking this, right? But it's that spiritual prison. And Naif Umar Hussein telling him, you're free. You've done it. You've broke out. Season 4 done. You're finished. You're good, right? You've made it. You're gonna get all your awards now. And like, you know what? There's always a chance. There's always a chance. And if you think, I've left it so late, dude, Hur was like leaving it hours. It's like it's like 24. The time was ticking. I never watched 24, but the concept sounded like something like that, right? But the time was ticking for him, and he did it, and it didn't matter how quick he was going. So I think it's the imagery and the concept that I never thought that line could ever apply to me, that I'm in prison. It just doesn't make sense. But then when you dig, you're like, woof, it is a prison. It really is. But like there's another one, for example, Allahumma aghni kulla faqir, about poverty, and it links to that line of antumul fuqara'u ila Allah. That whilst I'm thinking, I'm not faqir, I'm not needy, like I walk past when I go to my office in Oxford Circus, I'm walking past 4, 5, 6 homeless people every day now, man. It's crazy in that part of London, right? One of the most affluent streets in the world. Yet there's just poverty everywhere. But then Allah in the Quran's like, yo, hold on. Ya ayyuhan nas, all you lot, antumul fuqara'u ila Allah, you're needy unto God, so relax, it all comes from Allah. And you're like, damn, another one. So I don't know, just each line just takes you on a different journey, and the imagery is just beautiful. So the whole dua, but this one of the prison break is probably a highlight.
All of us can reflect, like when was Hur free? Was he free when he was a commander of an army of 30,000 or a battalion of 30,000 and in charge of his fate and free to go wherever he wants? Or was he free when technically he's in an area where all around him, there's a trench that's been dug and there are swords facing him and 10 men for every man? He's free when he's confined in the material sense. Like that's his freedom. And it's the same thing you mentioned. Like I can think that I'm free now, but I'm not. I'll give you a great example, right? So you mentioned prisons. I work a lot of people who are in prisons at the moment. For some reason, a bunch of my contracts are ending up in this way now, where I'm working on people who are homeless when they come out of prison. So how do we help them while they're in prison? And ironically, at the same time, there's a few projects with a few Shias in London who are in prison right now. And through different means, one of my projects is supporting them. And here's what I've noticed. Oh, and by the way, when I'm working with migrants and refugees who are in refugee camps, those camps are like big prisons. Like in Lesbos in Greece, that's a prison. It's literally, they can't leave. Here's the interesting thing. The one who's outside of those walls, but is completely a slave to their desires, I don't see any freedom in them. And then when I go and visit some of the people who I'm visiting for the job that I'm doing, and I see them and they greet me and they smile and they welcome me, and they're in prison, they're literally in prison, that's their day-to-day. But they sit down with me and they welcome me and they give me that smile and akhlaq. And more than that, and I mentioned this into one of the podcasts recently, they do latmiya, they do majlis in their prisons. I don't know if you saw this video in Bahrain when it was Muharram time, maybe 2 years ago, and there's a video of those who were in political prison in Bahrain doing a majlis in the courtyards in the prison which they're in, walking back and forth within the walls of the outer courtyard, doing mata like latmiya back and forth. Now, who's more free? The person outside who doesn't go to the mosque because it's too far away from them when Abu Abdullah's nights are coming, or those imprisoned lovers of Ali bin Abi Talib who find in their prison a place of ibadah? We have this line in Dua Nudba that مجتمعة على قطيعة رحمه. Most people came together and they cut relations from Ali alayhi salam, except a few, إلا القليل. They remained loyal. And because they stayed loyal, فقتل من قتل وصبي من صبي وأقصي من أقصي. Some of them were killed, and some were put in prison because they loved Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Now, if you go and ask those who were in prison because of loving Muhammad alayhi salam, go and ask Misam, I mentioned him earlier, go ask Habib when he was in prison, go ask Mukhtar. None of them would ever let go of the love for Imam Ali alayhi salam for a second, and they would rather embrace the prison cell than let go of this wilayah. So you tell me again, who's more free, the one in prison or the one outside of prison? You know,
That's it.
These physical things don't matter anymore for us.
It's what you value, right? It's what's the prioritization. Again, it comes back to that. And I think that's the beautiful part. And honestly, I think when you put this lens on, and you beautifully alluded to it, especially when we're traveling to Zone 1 to many of our offices or whatever, you just see so many people with huge bank accounts, but not much more. And you can tell they're just frustrated, they're irritated. You know, all the signs of someone who hasn't got that freedom, all the signs of a guy who wants to run but have got the shackles around their ankles. They're just frustrated, right? And they can't let it out. They can't speak of it, but they do feel at points in their life moments of, I feel free again, right? Sometimes when they go on holiday and they're sat next to the ocean and they're starting to reconnect with something more than just their capitalist desires and self-desires, or when they manage to give a grant to an organization or to a cause, or they give something without anyone knowing, and they're like, oh, maybe, you know. And we have that example of Fir'aun in the Quran, that even he, at some point, he wakes up, yeah, and he's like, actually, yeah, like, there is a God, you know, and there's enough there to wake him up potentially for a moment. And just continuing that line of Hur, and I'm just again taking this just here from Shaykh al-Fan, again putting all these amazing lights together, he points towards Baqir Sharif al-Qarashi in his book Hayat al-Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And after he quotes that line that's attributed to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, saying Anta Hur kama samatu ummuk, باقر الشريف القرشي then says لقد كان الحر حرا حينما غلب عقله هوى, that surely Hur was a free man when his intellect won over his vain inclination.
Absolutely.
And that's the challenge, right? It's that prioritization every single time. And Shaykh Panahian alludes to this a lot in his books, and he says you become a man, you become a woman, you become a real human when you make these decisions. Until then, you're just a kid, you're just a boy, you're just a girl. You're not making big life decisions. Yeah, you said you're going to be able to take on a mortgage. That's a small boy decision. That's a small girl decision. A real man, a real woman decision is when it's 7:42, 7:44, you're starving and you've wanted that iftar the whole day, yet somehow you're like, you know what? God first, Salah first. And then you extrapolate that in so many other parts in our life when it's 77th minute of the football game. And you're like, oh, it's Maghrib time. Oh, it's the Champions League final. Oh my God, we're on the counter. And you make that man, you make that woman, you make that adult decision. That's when you become a real human. And that's the training ground for it, right? A training ground for it. And if you nail that 5 times a day, guess what? When that second look opportunity comes up, that's going to put another lock in that prison, you're probably going to ace it. Because you've been practicing in your salah 5 times a day in the safe training ground. Yeah. And all of it comes together. That's why I say I'm a sucker for this imagery, right? I'm a basic brain, so that's just the way it works.
No, it's beautiful. Thank you for saying it. No, because that is, in many ways, that summarizes, and I think it's a good time to summarize what we are discussing. I've just got a 2-minute remaining thing. Okay, I'll quickly finish.
Go.
So it's a good summary, because right now in Shahr Ramadan, all of us are ready and we are training and we are preparing for the part after Ramadan, where we have proved what we achieved this month. And I want to thank you, my dear brother Sadiq, for joining us today and sharing some wisdom, especially from a various array of literature, on, you know, tips and tricks to how to know our prison, identify the nature of our personal prison, and then plan for its emancipation. And then at some point, crawl through the hardship we put ourselves in to achieve some sort of freedom after it. Some reigning scene where we look back and say, you know what, bitawfiq Allah, and with du'as of my family and my friends and all the mu'mineen, this one thing I changed. And I encourage everyone to find that one thing you want to change and succeed, inshallah. Sadiq, I'll let you close off today in the last 1 minute. If anyone wants to mention any comments or anything, now's a great time to. Sadiq, last words for today's episode?
Last words is just, firstly, thank you to you for making these awesome sessions happen. I think they're a good vibe. Hopefully the brothers and sisters benefited as much as I did learning from you. But Shaykh Muhammad Khalfan, Manifestations of the All-Merciful, you can go line by line of the dua, chat with friends. It's really beautifully written. It's available online. It's on Al-Islam. You can get a copy of it for £5. Manifestations of the All-Merciful. Yes, it's really worth your time.
Inshallah, it's a great book. Did I tell you who's coming on tomorrow? I think I sent you a voice message. Do you remember who I told you it was? Don't say it,
You
but do you
did,
remember?
honestly. You did.
Okay,
But my
guys,
brain's
listen.
gone.
I'm not gonna let Sadiq announce it now, but we've got a great guest tomorrow to carry on these discussions. Inshallah, Sadiq unfortunately can't be with us every day of Shahr Ramadan, so we'll see you tomorrow at Salat al Fajr time. I'll put a post out of who's joining us, and we'd love to see you with us today. But that's it. Thank you. I've got 7 seconds. Take care, Sadiq. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Ma'as salam, everybody. Ma'as salam. Fi amanillah.